With the release of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 9, the biggest bombshell that we have is the reveal that not only was Kurama reborn, but also he's been reborn inside of Naruto's youngest child, the sweet little Himawari, and to say that it caused quite the stir in the community, it's a bit of an understatement. And so in today's newest Naruto Explained video, I wanted to weigh in and I wanted to provide what I feel is some very much needed perspective on the core aspect of Kurama's character that has not been mentioned based off of the discourse I've seen online, and I do feel like it plays a huge part in what we're seeing with the established narrative here. And no, I'm not just talking about the whole Bijuu get reborn thing that the narrative has already established in Naruto's manga, but instead I at first want to come at this from an angle that longtime viewers of the channel know my go-to response, not just for Naruto but also for other manga in general, is if something confuses me, I first look at Japanese culture, which inevitably brings you to the point that we're going to open this video up with, which is it goes back to Kishimoto's original plans for Naruto's manga that was scrapped and readjusted in order to get it serialized back in 1999. And in order to understand this, as well as some of the deeper nuances with Kurama's character in Naruto's manga and how it relates to him being reborn now and the Baryon mode stuff, you have to understand the folklore that inspired a lot of those things when it comes to Kurama. In particular, this latest plot twist. We all know that Kurama is a nine-tailed fox, but Kurama is also based off of a yokai in Japanese folklore called the kitsune. There are 13 different types of this yokai, but at its peak, it's a powerful being that has 9 tails, and as the folklore has implied, the more tails that it has, the more powerful it is. Just like the inspiration of what Kurama said about the power levels of the 9 Bijuu, the number of tails directly correlates to their power level. The nine-tailed fox kitsune needed to live for 1,000 years in order to reach this point, which 1,000 years just happens to be the amount of time between when the Sage's Six Paths and Kaguya were around to the current era that we have now. In the folklore, they grow a new tail every 100 years. The nine-tailed kitsune is, in some stories, considered to be a messenger of the gods that can bring good luck, but it's also considered to be the wisest and most influential of the kitsune. However, a lot of the folklore also paint a different picture of the beast, with it being known as a trickster and it being mischievous, but which of these you get depends on the number of tails you have. Like the kitsune with the 6 tails Tengoku, it was a wise and encouraging 6-tailed fox versus Jikan kitsune, who has control over time itself, and Kaze kitsune, who has 5 tails and is known for having wind powers. And then you have Yumi kitsune, who just happens to have the strong ability for healing. So you can see where this is going. As you can probably tell from the last couple ones, Kaze kitsune played a role in Naruto having a strong wind release change in chakra nature, and Ume kitsune having the healing ability, just as Naruto as the nine-tailed fox Jinchuriki has insane healing abilities, because Naruto and Kurama both embody in their characters multiple types of kitsune when you dig into them. But this is where I circle back to Kurama in particular, and this whole thing Kurama being reborn. Foxes, including kitsune, they play tricks. They aren't above lying. In fact, in quite a few of the folklore stories, they do just that. And even the Shinto god of foxes, Inari, has played tricks in a lot of stories. This is important to look at because it was one of the reasons I was skeptical years ago about Baryon mode, where I said in a couple videos that Baryon mode wasn't going to kill Naruto the way that Kurama said it would, and that Baryon mode, after it failed to defeat Ishiki, Naruto would not be a Jinchuriki anymore. And a big part of the reason why I was so skeptical at the time was I was getting a nagging feeling that this is a classic shift towards adding folklore to the Boruto story. And it's not something I ever would have thought of at the time had we not gotten that announcement that Boruto was going back moving forward to be based off of Kishimoto's original drafts for the story. I kept the fox spirit part out at the time because I hadn't started yet using mythology and folklore here on the channel, but as I've eased it into the content, it seems more of you guys are becoming receptive to it. Kurama was lying back then. First, he lied to Naruto that the form would kill both of them by implying it and saying that when the form was used, it would come with death. Then he was starting to explain the mechanics how Baryon mode work. There were times where it looked like there were holes that are appearing in the story, as if he was making things up as he went along, doing what liars do. They mix in bits of the truth with their lies in order to make the lies seem more believable. By the time we got to that emotional farewell with Naruto, particularly the anime version of that farewell, we learned that Kurama was lying to Naruto, that it would be both of them who died, when in reality it was just Kurama. However, it's what was said just before that farewell took place that I think might have caused Kurama to tell one final lie, or rather, to be more accurate, play one final trick. When Naruto starts to say, "I guess this means I'm dead," Kurama immediately cuts him off in the manga and says that he specifically came to Naruto to say farewell, and he watches Naruto very closely during this time, especially when Naruto in the manga pauses before he speaks. Kurama was coming to say goodbye, when if they were both dying, they'd both be going to the afterlife. In Naruto's words, I believe might have potentially cemented Kurama playing one last trick, especially given the fact that when Naruto realized that he was about to die, Naruto had a ton of regrets, and at the top of his list was his son Boruto, who just happened to have an alien extracting their DNA into Boruto and was on the precipice of being reborn to destroy the world, something Kurama would have been aware of. In the manga version, Naruto says, after pausing and giving deep thought to what he's gonna say, he says Kurama killed his parents. It is a stark reminder of how dark things were before Naruto and Kurama ever became friends. Kurama is why Naruto never had a solid upbringing, and he grew up without peace, and he faced hatred and endured so much because he was Kurama's Jinchuriki. Kurama tries to pretty it up by saying that at no point did he ever say that Naruto would die, but half-truths are still lies. They're just lies that are told with a smile, which is why Naruto says Kurama misled him, just like a fox would do. Foxes play tricks. Foxes are mischievous. Foxes are disingenuous. It was one last trick before going away, a trick to remember him by. Something very much in character for a character pattern, and taking a lot of inspiration from fox folklore. As Kurama is fading away, he tells Naruto to be careful or else he'll end up joining him in no time, but Kurama doesn't specifically say he's gonna be waiting on Naruto. His words of "until that day," they can be read as just as his words about Baryon mode were, implying one thing but meaning another thing altogether. And that fits into what we have with Naruto as a series, a ninja must see through deception. And as you heard me say in the past, when you read Naruto's manga, there's a lot of hidden subtext because Kishimoto mixes in lettering to say hidden messages. Kurama says in chapter 51, it's a do or die, last stand, ace up your sleeve type of thing. Only worth trying because you're expecting me killed anyway, which is what everyone sank their teeth into. Rightfully so, that's a big line, but Kurama did say, because you'll die, do this and it's over. Since you'll be killed either way, it's not a choice to make lightly. While he didn't specifically say Naruto would die, he tricked him into thinking that it would be Naruto who died because he gave him the option to choose, when in reality he was talking about himself. But the panels, they show Kurama closing his eyes before he gives Naruto the information. That was another sign, a tell, that Kurama was getting ready to play another trick, just as a fox spirit does, because Kurama's mind was already made up to use that power in order to save Naruto. As he called it, it was an ace up the hole, but he needed to trick Naruto in order to use it. He's tricked Naruto before, just as he's done in the past, just as he's done several times in the past, being honest with you, or at least he tried to trick him several times in the past. And it's not past him to have played one final trick. Even in Kishimoto's one-shot for Naruto, the pilot chapter for the Naruto series that ended up getting it picked up as a manga serialization with some tweaks that were made to the story, Kurama was literally Naruto's father in that one shot, and Naruto was a baby fox who was playing trick. It was a full circle moment. But I want to move away from this and I want to dive deeper into the lore of the Naruto franchise, because while I do believe this is another example of Japanese folklore and Shinto being used in the story, particularly since Inari, the fox god, wasn't just a god of rice, but also a god of fertility, which, side note, 1 + 1 = 2, Kurama just got reborn, and Inari is a god of fertility. Easy self-explanatory connection to make there. Let's get into the lore after addressing this last point. Kurama in the chapter implies that he was hiding. Another trick by a fox, but why was he hiding inside of Himawari? This might have been part of the trick he played on Naruto. Their only concern at the time was Ishiki, and he was dead. And also, Boruto's coma seal was extracting, and Kurama's power was enough to deal with Momoshiki whenever that day inevitably came. They had already done it once before, which I do believe Kurama might have had a contingency plan in place of that. But the Bijuu cycle of life, death, and rebirth is right there on the table for explaining how we got here. Yes, Baryon mode is implied to be different. However, it is worth noting Kurama made it a point to say that Baryon mode was different from normal Bijuu extraction. He directly specified where the Jinchuriki dies. He just said that he would die. He didn't solidly say that he would stay dead, only that he would die. And he even went as far as to say that the Bijuu's chakra just vanishes. Nothing in what he said in that quote implies that he stays dead, which is a big distinction. In a chapter where we see plain as day that Kurama still plays tricks, he tells half-truths, particularly when he believes it's something that Naruto will be firmly against, and if that Momoshiki aspect was something that Kurama thought still needed to be addressed, which he would have known it needed to be addressed, that would explain why he didn't say that he was going to be reborn. The same with potentially wanting to free Naruto being a Jinchuriki, but that point is irrelevant to this part of the lore. Kurama never said that he wouldn't ever be reborn, and the cycle of the Bijuu in terms of the rebirth, it does make sense. We don't have an established interval for how long it takes place. We can speculate based off what we've seen. We've seen with the three tells that it takes at a bare minimum 3 years, but it was never established that this applies to all the Bijuu. And based off of Damon's sensing chakra inside of Himawari, it makes sense that Kurama was respawned inside of Himawari, potentially faster, which I did a video on why I think Kurama ended up in Himawari as fast as he did, which I'll leave linked in the end credits so as to not repeat the talking points. The idea that Kurama might have shared chakra at Himawari when, say, Naruto was asleep and Kurama just manifested outside of Naruto's body like he did when he spoke to Kawaki and he touched Himawari in her sleep and he put his chakra inside of her one night, that seems very far-fetched. But even if that's the case, it breaks the lore in the sense that sharing Bijuu chakra does not make Kurama manifest as a baby. But hey, retcons can happen. It happens in long run and shonen a lot. The other thing that I think makes this work is that it does what we've seen Naruto do as a franchise, which is it takes folklore or Shinto or Buddhism and it flips it on its head. A classic example, look at the Ashras and Indras. Then go look at what they were in Naruto's manga in terms of which reincarnation was good and which one was bad, which one walked the path of light and which one walked the path of darkness. Kurama, when we meet him in the start, he was depicted as being a kitsune of the folklore, almost to a T, where some of them have been associated with causing calamities. Just as the nine-tailed fox, when we meet him in Naruto chapter 1, was referred to as this great calamity that almost brought about the destruction of the village, and continuously multiple times throughout the series after that until we learn Kurama's name was referred to in some capacity as a destructive being. Kurama showed himself to Naruto when he was 12 years old at a time where there were countless threats abound, and yet Himawari had Kurama inside of her for 3 years and he never showed himself. It's a testament to the way that times have changed, and this time Kurama emerging isn't as a calamity but as a means to help stop one in the form of the Shinju that are going to bring about a global calamity. I can see both sides of the argument. Being transparent with you, like I said in the review, ultimately I'm going to wait to see what the manga reveals potentially in the next chapter. If it's a reborn Kurama without his memories, absolutely fine. If it's the same Kurama, we have the lore explaining to us directly that Bijuu are reborn, and we have the folklore that has been used at times for Kurama where he's either tricked Naruto or he's lied to him at times before the Baryon mode concept was introduced. The biggest question I'll have is, why is this specifically a baby Kurama? Because that goes against what we've seen before. So the reason for the retcon, it does have to make sense. Now, as for why Himawari might have had Bijuu chakra for a long time before this, as far back as part 1 of the series, you'll want to click this video to find out why. It goes in extensive detail on it.